subscribers. Today is review of trial day 15. If you've been with me this far, I am so grateful and welcome back. Today's trial is going to be long, and we are continuing with Jennifer McCabe's testimony from trial day 14. The whole review today is strictly solely on Jennifer, and we also didn't finish testimony with her, so she will be back again for trial day 16. So we have a lot to cover today, so let's get to it. So we start off the day with them leaving the waterfall, and when I say them, it was Jennifer, Karen, and you see John as well. Jennifer on the stand explained that she told Karen, "You should come with me," as they were leaving the waterfall. And in that footage, you see Jennifer and Karen talking. You don't hear it because it's just the footage. It's not. Usually, Mr. Jackson from defense doesn't irritate me, but for some reason, through this entire day of questioning of Jennifer McCabe, he continuously irritated me. And you might think, oh, maybe it's just feeling that day, but no, because I couldn't finish all of that testimony in one day, and I usually don't, so that's why it kind of takes me a while to get these videos up to you guys. But even with finishing it today, I still felt the same way, and I don't know why Mr. Jackson was acting this way, but anyway, were there particular instances that he irritated me because he was trying to insist that the Jennifer was trying to separate Karen from John, and that's why she was trying to make Karen go with her in the vehicle. And according to Jennifer, she just said it was snowing outside, it was cold, John hadn't come out of the bar yet, neither had Matt, her husband, and she just told Karen, "You should come with me," to sit in the vehicle until John and everyone else came out of the bar. But that was her explanation of it. But Mr. Jackson just continued to push to say that no, she was trying to separate Karen from John, and it continued for a good while, and it became really irritating to me. If you would like to see that testimony, definitely go check out trial day. During this exchange of asking her or telling her she should come with me, they were like, in the footage, they were about like 10 feet apart from each other. So it's not like Jennifer had Karen by the arm and was like, you know, "You're coming with me," or you could see in the footage they were separated from each other. So that also contributed to why Mr. Jackson was irritating me with his speculations of what took place at this exact moment. Although we aren't privileged to the information that maybe Karen herself, his client, gave him for what took place at that moment, right now all we have is what he is saying to Jennifer on the stand and hearing what Jennifer has to say in response to what Mr. Jackson is saying. We had Mr. Jackson asking Jennifer questions based off of Trooper Proctor's report. Jennifer said yes, she did speak to Trooper Proctor that day. So she looked at Trooper Proctor's report, and after looking at it on the stand, we were watching this, she said she didn't agree with what he wrote in his report about what she said. She did agree, however, that Trooper Proctor did ask her specific questions about where she saw the SUV situated outside of the home. This was an issue because apparently she didn't mention anything about a Jeep being behind this black SUV out front, and it wasn't until later that this information was given, and Jennifer said that the reason why she never said anything about a Jeep being there was because she was never asked, and that Trooper Proctor was asking her specific questions about that black SUV. Trooper Proctor wrote in his report that Jennifer said where she first saw or first observed it being the SUV parked on the street by the driveway facing the direction of Chapman. Jennifer said, "I told him that when I looked out the front door, the car was straight ahead, and yes, it was facing up Chapman." Mr. Jackson then questioned her and said, "Okay, but you left out a specific part of what you said." And he said, quote, "by the driveway," unquote. To which Jennifer said that would have been Trooper Proctor's interpretation of what she said, because that basically was not what she said. She apparently never said by the driveway. However, Trooper Proctor's report has it stated that she said by the driveway. So let's take a look at that footage.
that you left out of the part by the driveway, correct?
That could have been his interpretation or an error on his part.
I see. So Trooper Proctor is wrong about what you said.
Objection.
No, I'll let him have it. Do you think he's wrong about what you said?
I 100% said it was straight out the front door.
Okay, next question, please.
I feel like Jennifer was being pretty honest about where she observed Karen's SUV, because as questioning goes on, Mr. Jackson continues to question her about what Trooper Proctor says in his report versus what Jennifer says in response to Trooper Proctor's report. And she was continuously not agreeing with Trooper Proctor's report. You can see her visually getting upset with Mr. Jackson's questions and comments about how her story now is not lining up with the story that Trooper Proctor wrote in his report. And she continued to say that Trooper Proctor specifically asked questions about Karen's SUV and not the other vehicles that were there. And she also states that she doesn't even remember Trooper Proctor even asking her about a Jeep being in the front yard, even though the report states that Jen told him there was a Jeep parked in the front, lined up with the end of the driveway. So this is more of the argument she was having with Mr. Jackson about him insisting that she said this, because this is what Trooper Proctor said in his report. She's saying she didn't say that, and she doesn't even remember being asked about a Jeep. And if you remember, Trooper Proctor is close friends with the Albert family and one of the first investigators that showed up to the scene. So you can look at it two different ways. You can look at it as her just not remembering what was asked of her back then, and Trooper Proctor wrote down accurately what she said, or as this whole entire case is being argued, there is corruption in this and that Karen is getting framed for this. You could apply that maybe Trooper Proctor wrote down his own interpretation with the information he wanted in the report. So I hope that defense asks Trooper Proctor, when he gets on the stand, questions about this conflicting statements from the witness herself and from his report. We'll find out if we ever hear anything about that. She was also asked about Chloe the German Shepherd, and specifically what the dog basically did when she burst into the bedroom of the Alberts that morning. She's the one that went into the house to wake up Nicole and Brian Albert to tell them that they found John dead outside and that the police were there and wanted to talk to them. And as we probably remember through Brian Albert's testimony, he said that the dog was in there with them because that's where she slept. She said she doesn't have any memory of the dog that morning. Not only does she not have memory of the dog responding to her bursting into the room or into the house, nonetheless, she doesn't have any memory of the dog from that morning. Where the dog is at this point, I don't know. She didn't say anything like, the dog didn't get upset because she knows me or anything like that. She just said she doesn't have any memory of the dog from that morning. And continued to ask Jennifer about the vehicles that were out front of the Alberts' home that morning. She described that Karen's SUV was straight out front. So it was Karen's SUV, a Jeep, and then Ryan Nagel's vehicle. And if you remember who Ryan Nagel is, he's the brother of Julie Nagel. He was the one that went to pick her up and she decided not to leave. Mr. Jackson pointed out that at one point, Jennifer was asked by the grand jury what time Ryan Nagel got there. And so far we hadn't had really any information about when Ryan Nagel had got there, because Julie, if you can remember, she had drew a blank at this point and couldn't remember when she messaged her brother, couldn't remember when her brother got there, couldn't remember when he left. She couldn't remember who provided the alcohol that night. She doesn't remember if she provided the alcohol that night. It was just a total blank of information. So the first time we got information about when Ryan Nagel had showed up was from Ryan saying he left to pick up his sister at 12 and that it was like a 4-minute drive. And now we have this information from a previous grand jury questioning Jennifer. At this point, when Jennifer gave testimony to the grand jury, she said that Ryan Nagel got there around 12:23 a.m. I don't know if you remember the specific part in previous testimony of Julie Nagel when she was asked about her giving Jennifer McCabe, who we now have on the stand, a copy or a screenshot of the messages between her and her brother of when, Julie and her brother Ryan conversated about picking her up. Acquiring of this evidence comes into play here because Mr. Jackson asked Jennifer if she was able to remember the precise time because she was able to refresh her memory by looking at Julie Nagel's text. She agreed that that's why she was able to give such a precise time. Beginning of this whole review. I don't know why Mr. Jackson was acting the way he was today. I just haven't seen this behavior out of him for the first 14 days of trial. Maybe he was tired today or something, I don't know. But another part of why he was irritating me was because he was asking Jennifer questions and Jennifer would answer. And then he would then make claims that she just answered with this specific answer when she didn't. And so it became this kind of like argument, like, you just stated this when I asked you this. And she's like, no, I didn't. I said this. And I really don't know what was the motivation, or if he was just tired and just not marking in his memory too well her responses. But this is part of why he was really irritating me today with his questioning. I just don't feel like Mr. Jackson was on his game and asking these questions. So while Mr. Jackson was questioning Jennifer about when she looked out and saw Karen's SUV, Jennifer said that she saw tire marks in the road like a wave, and so she was trying to describe it. I wish they gave her a board or something to describe it. But what we concluded was it looked like if someone was driving down the road and then pulled off to the side to park on the side of the road. So it wouldn't be like up and down off the sidewalk or something. And Jennifer tried to explain that when she saw the tire marks that they did not lead up to Karen's vehicle. She also said she doesn't remember at what point she saw the tire marks, if it was like when she first saw the SUV parked there, or if it was the second time or third time she had looked out the window and saw the vehicle in different locations. She also went on further to explain that the questions she was asked by the grand jury were all about Miss Reed's vehicle, and she was not asked about other vehicles. So yes, she did not tell the grand jury about the Jeep parked behind Karen's vehicle. So then we get information about Jennifer's call log from her phone, and Karen and John were there. And so at 12:27 she texted here, quote unquote. She said she looked out again, and at 12:31 she texted him and said, quote, pull behind me, end quote. At 12:40 she texted hello, quote unquote. And at 12:42 she texts, where are you, quote unquote. And at 12:45 she texts, quote unquote, hello. We will apply more of that information later on here in her testimony. The only problem I had up to this point with Jennifer's testimony was really not much, but she seemed like she was answering everything, like she didn't get like spouts of amnesia. So she was doing her best, I feel, to answer the questions. Mr. Jackson asked Jennifer if she had heard any kind of noise out front of like people yelling or fighting, a car hitting brakes or anything crashing or anything like that, tires squealing. And she had said no, she didn't hear anything like that. He asked her specifically how her view was, what her view was between herself and the SUV out on the street, if she had a clear view of it. Her specific words, she had a good view. It wasn't just a clear view, she had a good view. Why is that important? Is because Mr. Jackson then asked her, did you see a body lying on the ground, like after you no longer saw the SUV there anymore? And her response was she didn't look, after she had already just told us she had a good view of her between her and the SUV. And so now we have her saying she didn't look. I myself, and probably many others, feel that was not a real truthful answer, because if you're looking back and forth to see what this SUV is doing, if John and Karen are getting out of it, and you got a good view from you to the vehicle, you didn't at any point see this body lying on the ground? I mean, she even at one point described seeing these tire marks that did not even lead up to Karen's vehicle, but now she didn't look at the ground. So that is like the first really big thing I've noticed with her testimony that didn't seem to be adding up. But she was also asked if she saw anything out of the ordinary in the yard, and she said no. So then we get questions now about when her and her husband Matt took Julie and Sarah home. She said that when she got into the vehicle, she looked back to talk to the girls. She said she's a chatty person and did not turn back around to look forward. Something else interesting that came out of this questioning was, I don't know if you remember that Julie Nagel was claiming that as they drove by the front of the yard, that she saw a black blob in the front yard and said like, hey, there's a black blob there, and that nobody responded to her. When Jennifer was questioned about this, she agreed with Mr. Jackson in questioning that she never heard Julie say that. And according to Jennifer here, she's saying she never turned around. So it's not like she turned around, turned face forward, and the girls kept talking behind her and she just didn't hear them. She herself said when they got in the vehicle, she turned around and started talking to the girls and didn't turn back around to look straight out the vehicle. She kept talking to the girls because, as she states, she's a chatty person. So I don't know if you remember me saying about how Julie's response, that specific sentence she said, like, I saw a black blob there, and like no one said anything. I don't know if you remember me stating back then, like that was like a very specific sentence to say, like to put in to her testimony right there, that just didn't seem to add up. Feel even more strongly about my feeling about that being an inserted sentence or statement, because as Jennifer's saying, she never even heard Julie say something like that. Jennifer and Matt got home after dropping all the girls off at around 2 to 2:50. And once home, she texted her sisters and texted her husband and a friend in a group chat, even though, yes, her husband was home with her. And she was asked that, you text your husband in these messages even though your husband was home? And she said, yeah. That's what she said. She had given previous testimony from the day before about how her, Karen, and Carrie were searching John's home that morning, trying to figure out if maybe he had just fallen asleep somewhere in the house. And she had specifically said how she remembers looking through the house and seeing that in John's bedroom, the bed was made. We learned through Mr. Jackson's questioning that Karen slept on the couch waiting for John to come home, and so that there were pillows and blankets on the couch. That's why the bed was made. If you recall, she had specifically said, I remember Karen saying, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. And it was 3 times that Karen said this, according to Jennifer. If you remember, she said that Karen said this while they were driving around in Carrie Roberts' vehicle looking for John that morning. In response to her claiming she heard her saying this, Mr. Jackson then handed Jennifer a transcript of her testimony from the grand jury, and at no point did she ever anytime say that Karen said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him in that testimony. She was provided this transcript on the stand so she could refresh her memory about what she said. Her response was, I don't know, this is a over 200-page document. So basically she couldn't sit there and go through all of it right now on the stand and see if she didn't say it at one point. However, she was actually given this testimony at another point in preparation for the hearing today so she could go over it herself, the full 200 pages. And what was interesting that Mr. Jackson brought out about this particular report with the grand jury is that she had never said at any point during those statements, 12 different times from being in the vehicle all the way to the scene of the crime, that she never said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. She only kept repeating, did I hit him? Could I have hit him? Now, this is Jennifer's testimony to the grand jury, and at no point, 12 separate times, did she ever say to the grand jury that she heard Karen say, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. She only kept telling the grand jury that she heard Karen say, did I hit him? Could I have hit him? So that was some more misalignment with her testimony. Mr. Jackson asked her, like, don't you think that would be like a pretty important statement to be telling the grand jury or telling anybody at this point? I'm pretty sure it was objected to, but I just find like, yes, you were able to tell everybody how she's, tell the grand jury that she said, could I have hit him? Did I hit him? Several different times, but at no point in that did she ever say. I heard Karen say, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him 3 times in a row. So that's a little suspect. If you remember back to like trial day, like 1 through 6, there was questioning